It was just another day in a small, quiet town where life moved at its own pace. Nestled between tall pine trees and narrow streets, there was a little cafe that had been around for decades. It wasn't fancy, just a cozy spot with mismatched chairs, faded wallpaper, and the smell of fresh coffee wafting through the air. For most people passing through, it was nothing special. But for Emily Carter, this place was her second home. At 27 years old, Emily had seen more than her fair share of struggles. Life hadn't exactly been kind to her. Every morning she woke up early, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. Her mother was sick, and medical bills were piling up faster than she could pay them off. On top of that, student loans from a degree she never finished hung over her head like a dark cloud. Still, Emily didn't let any of it show when she put on her apron and stepped behind the counter at the cafe. Her customers loved her. They said she had a way of making everyone feel welcome, even if they were having a bad day. Whether it was cracking jokes with the regulars or patiently listening to someone vent about their problems, Emily always gave her best. She believed that kindness mattered, no matter how tough things got. And honestly, serving coffee and taking orders wasn't so bad when you looked at it as an opportunity to brighten someone's day. On one particularly dreary afternoon, the rain poured down outside, drumming against the windows and turning the streets slick with water. Inside the cafe, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the gloomy weather. People came in seeking shelter, sipping hot drinks while they waited for the storm to pass. Emily buzzed around the room, balancing trays of food and refilling cups without missing a beat. That's when he walked in. At first glance, he didn't stand out. He wore a plain leather jacket, jeans, and boots caked with mud from the rain. His hair was damp, sticking to his forehead, and he carried himself with an unassuming air. If anything, he looked like just another traveler stopping by to escape the downpour. No one paid him much attention, not even Emily, who was busy juggling orders from 3 different tables. The man chose a corner seat near the window, pulling out a chair and sitting down with a sigh. He glanced at the menu, then out the window, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass. Something about him felt different. Maybe it was the way he observed everything quietly, almost like he was studying the room instead of just being part of it. Or maybe it was the calm energy he exuded, a stark contrast to the hurried chaos of the cafe. When Emily finally made her way over to take his order, she greeted him with her usual smile. "Hi there. What can I get for you today?" He looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, but also warm. "Coffee, black," he said, his voice steady and measured. "And a slice of apple pie if you've got it." "Coming right up," Emily replied cheerfully before heading back to the counter. As she prepared his order, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something unusual about him, not in a creepy or suspicious way, just different. Like he didn't quite belong here in this tiny cafe, yet he fit perfectly all at once. A few minutes later, she returned with his coffee and pie, setting them down carefully on the table. "Here you go," she said with a grin. "Let me know if you need anything else." "Thank you," he replied, offering her a polite nod. Then, without another word, he turned his attention back to the window, lost in thought. Emily shrugged it off and went back to work, forgetting about the mysterious stranger almost immediately. After all, she had plenty of other customers to worry about. Little did she know, this seemingly ordinary encounter would soon become the most unforgettable moment of her life. For now, though, it was just another rainy afternoon at the cafe, a blur of steaming mugs, clinking plates, and friendly chatter. But sometimes the smallest moments hold the biggest surprises. And for Emily, that surprise was closer than she ever imagined. The cafe buzzed with its usual rhythm as Emily moved from table to table, balancing plates and refilling coffee cups. The rain outside showed no signs of stopping, and the steady patter against the windows added a soothing backdrop to the hum of conversation inside. Customers came and went, some lingering over their meals while others hurried out into the storm. Through it all, Emily kept her focus sharp, ensuring everyone was taken care of. At the corner table near the window, The man in the leather jacket sipped his coffee slowly, occasionally glancing at the rain-soaked world beyond the glass. He seemed content to sit there quietly, observing the room without drawing attention to himself. Every now and then he'd take a bite of his apple pie, chewing thoughtfully as if savoring not just the taste but also the moment itself. Emily noticed him finishing his meal when she passed by to check on another customer. She made a mental note to bring him the bill soon, knowing how much people appreciated prompt service, especially on busy days like this one. After dropping off a tray of dirty dishes in the kitchen, she grabbed the checkbook and headed toward his table. "Here's your bill," she said brightly, placing the slip of paper face down on the table. "Let me know if everything was okay." He glanced up briefly, giving her a small smile before nodding. "Everything was perfect, thank you." Something about the way he said it caught her off guard, not because it sounded rehearsed or insincere, but because it felt genuine. It wasn't often that someone took the time to acknowledge her efforts so politely. Most customers were nice enough, sure, but they rarely went out of their way to express gratitude. This man, however, seemed different, as though he truly meant what he said. Emily returned to the counter, busying herself with cleaning up and helping other patrons. A few minutes later, the man stood up, slipped on his jacket, and walked over to settle his tab. He handed her his credit card along with the folded bill, which she quickly processed through the register. As she handed him back the receipt, something unusual caught her eye, a piece of paper tucked underneath it. Curious, Emily unfolded the note after he had left the cafe. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary receipt, but then her eyes landed on the handwritten message scrawled across the bottom. "Your warmth and dedication are rare gems in this world. Keep shining. Jay." Her heart skipped a beat as she read the words again, trying to process what they meant. But the real shock came when she flipped the paper over. There, written in bold numbers, was an amount that made her gasp aloud. 10,000. For a moment she thought she must be dreaming. How could this possibly be real? She stared at the note, her hands trembling slightly, half expecting someone to burst out laughing and tell her it was all a prank. But the longer she looked at it, the more certain she became that it was genuine. The tip alone was more money than she earned in months of working at the cafe. Overwhelmed, Emily rushed to the door, hoping to catch the man before he disappeared into the rain. But when she pushed it open and scanned the street, he was already gone. His footsteps had vanished into the wet pavement, leaving behind only the faint scent of leather and the echo of his kindness. Back inside, Emily slumped onto a stool behind the counter, still clutching the note tightly in her hand. Her mind raced with questions. Who was this man? Why had he left such an enormous tip? And what did he mean by calling her dedication rare? She replayed their brief interaction in her head, searching for clues, but nothing stood out. To her, it had been just another polite exchange, nothing extraordinary enough to warrant such generosity. Her co-workers noticed her dazed expression and gathered around, curious about what had happened. When she showed them the note, their reactions ranged from disbelief to excitement. Some joked that maybe aliens had landed in town, while others suggested the man might be a secret millionaire playing games with unsuspecting strangers. Whatever, the reason, one thing was clear. This act of kindness had left an indelible mark on Emily. As the initial shock wore off, reality began to sink in. $10,000 wasn't life-changing wealth, but for someone like Emily, who lived paycheck to paycheck, it was a lifeline. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine possibilities beyond the daily grind of work and worry. Could she finally pay off some of her mother's medical bills? Maybe even start saving for school again? But alongside the hope came a wave of uncertainty. Accepting such a generous gift felt complicated. Was it wrong to keep it? Should she try to find the man and return the money? These thoughts swirled in her mind as the afternoon wore on, making it hard to concentrate on her tasks. By the time her shift ended, Emily knew one thing for sure. This stranger's gesture had changed her day, and possibly her life in ways she couldn't yet fully understand. As she locked up the cafe and stepped out into the cool evening air, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of curiosity burning inside her. Who was this mysterious man? And why had he chosen her to receive such an incredible gift? Little did she know, answering those questions would lead her down a path she never could have imagined. The next morning, Emily woke up with the same questions swirling in her mind that had kept her tossing and turning all night. Who was this man? Why had he left her such an incredible tip? And what did he mean by those words? Keep shining. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story, something she wasn't seeing yet. As she got ready for work, the note sat on her kitchen counter, folded neatly beside her keys. The numbers stared back at her, bold and impossible to ignore. $10,000, it wasn't just money. It felt like a message. A sign that maybe life had bigger plans for her than she'd ever dared to dream. But at the same time, it felt heavy, like carrying a secret she didn't fully understand. At the cafe, Emily tried to focus on her usual routine, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the stranger. During a quiet moment between customers, she decided to ask around. Maybe someone else had seen him or knew who he was. She described him carefully. Tall, wearing a leather jacket, calm demeanor, polite manners. But no matter how hard she searched, no one seemed to recognize him. He must have been passing through, one of the regulars suggested with a shrug. You know how it is. People stop here for coffee and then move on. But deep down, Emily didn't believe that. Something about the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence, the thoughtful gaze, told her he wasn't just another traveler. There was a purpose behind his actions, even if she couldn't figure it out yet. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily turned to the only tool she had left: the internet. That evening, after finishing her shift, she sat at her tiny kitchen table with her laptop open. She typed keywords into the search bar, things like mysterious billionaire tips and generous strangers. At first, nothing useful came up. Most of the results were random stories or urban legends, none of them matching the details of her experience. Then, late into the night, she stumbled across an article that made her heart skip a beat. It was a profile of a successful tech entrepreneur, known for his low-profile lifestyle and acts of kindness. The accompanying photo stopped her cold. It was him, the man from the cafe. His name was Jonathan Reed, a self-made billionaire who had built his empire from scratch. According to the article, he often traveled incognito, blending in with ordinary people to observe their lives without judgment. Emily read the entire piece twice, her mind racing with new questions. Was this really the same person? Had he chosen her cafe randomly, or was there some deeper reason he'd ended up there? And why had he singled her out for such generosity? Her curiosity burned brighter than ever, but along with it came a sense of awe. This wasn't just any rich guy throwing money around, it was someone who genuinely cared about people, someone who noticed the little things others might overlook, like her smile, her dedication, her effort to make every customer feel valued. Over the next few days, Emily wrestled with what to do next. Part of her wanted to reach out to him directly to thank him for his kindness, and maybe even ask why he'd done it. But another part of her hesitated. What if contacting him felt intrusive? What if he preferred to remain anonymous, leaving his gift as a silent act of goodwill? In the end, practicality won out. She used some of the money to pay off her mother's mounting medical bills, breathing a sigh of relief for the first time in months. Then, she enrolled in night classes to finish the nursing degree she'd put on hold years ago. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to dream again, to imagine a future where she wasn't trapped in debt or overwhelmed by responsibility. Still, the mystery of Jonathan Reed lingered in the back of her mind. She found herself thinking about him during quiet moments, wondering if their paths would ever cross again. It wasn't just about gratitude, it was about understanding. Why had he picked her? What had he seen in her that day at the cafe? One evening, as she scrolled through social media after a long day of work and studying, an unexpected notification popped up on her phone. It was an email from him. Her breath caught as she opened it, her fingers trembling slightly. The subject, line read, from one stranger to another. Inside, Jonathan explained that he often traveled unnoticed to observe people's true nature away from the pressures of wealth and fame. On the day he visited the cafe, Emily's warmth and resilience had deeply moved him. He wrote that her kindness reminded him of the goodness still present in the world, something he cherished more than anything else. He ended the email with an invitation. "I'd love to meet you again, not as a billionaire, but as someone who admires your spirit. Join me for dinner next week." Emily read the message over and over, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. Should she say yes? Meeting him felt like stepping into the unknown, but she couldn't deny the pull of curiosity, or the chance to learn more about the man who had changed her life so profoundly. After much deliberation, she replied, agreeing to meet him for dinner. As she hit send, a wave of anticipation washed over her. This wasn't just about solving the mystery anymore. It was about connecting with someone who saw value in her when she barely saw it in herself. Whatever happened, next she knew it would be unforgettable. The day of the dinner arrived, and Emily couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so nervous. She spent hours getting ready, trying on outfit after outfit, before finally settling on something simple but elegant, a navy blue dress that hugged her frame just right and made her feel confident. As she stood in front of the mirror applying a light layer of makeup, she couldn't help but wonder what this evening would bring. Would it feel awkward? Would they even have anything to talk about beyond that rainy afternoon at the cafe? The restaurant Jonathan had chosen was nestled by a serene lake, its windows overlooking the water where soft waves lapped against the shore. It wasn't flashy or overly luxurious, just cozy and inviting, much like the cafe where their paths had first crossed. When Emily pulled into the parking lot, her stomach flipped with anticipation. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself to stay calm. After all, this wasn't some high-stakes meeting. It was just two people sharing a meal. Inside, Jonathan was already seated at a table near the window, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks. He looked up as she approached, his face breaking into a warm smile. For a moment, Emily forgot how to breathe. This was the same man who had walked into her cafe weeks ago, yet somehow he seemed even more impressive now. Not because of his wealth or status, but because of the genuine kindness in his eyes. "Hi," he said, standing up to greet her. His voice was steady, but there was a hint of nervousness in it too. "I'm glad you came." Emily smiled back, feeling some of her tension melt away. "Me too. Thanks for inviting me." They sat down, and almost immediately, the conversation flowed naturally. Jonathan asked her questions about her life, her work at the cafe, her studies, her dreams for the future. Instead of making her feel interrogated, his curiosity put her at ease. He listened intently, nodding along and occasionally offering thoughtful comments. In turn, Emily found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told him about her struggles, the financial burdens, the sacrifices she'd made for her mother, the fear that she'd never escape the cycle of debt. But she also shared her hopes to finish school, to make a difference in her community, to build a better life not just for herself, but for those around her. For his part, Jonathan didn't shy away from talking about his own journey. He admitted that success hadn't come easily. It had taken years of hard work, late nights, and plenty of failures along the way. What surprised Emily most, though, was how humble he was about it all. He spoke about his achievements almost casually, as if they were just stepping stones rather than trophies to be admired. More than once, he emphasized the importance of staying grounded, of remembering where you came from no matter how far you traveled. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere grew lighter. They laughed over shared stories, bonded over mutual frustrations with modern technology, and marveled at the beauty of the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink outside the window. By the time dessert arrived, a rich chocolate cake that neither of them could resist, they weren't strangers anymore. They were two people connecting on a human level, finding common ground despite their vastly different lives. But then, as the check arrived, Jonathan shifted gears slightly. Leaning forward, he fixed Emily with a serious look. "There's something I want to say," he began, his tone measured but sincere. "When I met you at the cafe, I saw someone who works tirelessly, who gives everything she has without expecting anything in return. That kind of spirit is rare, and I wanted to do more than just leave a tip. I want to invest in your future." Emily froze, unsure of what to say. Invest. The word sent her mind racing with possibilities and fears. Was he offering her a job? A loan? Something else entirely? Jonathan must have sensed her hesitation because he quickly clarified. "I know it might sound overwhelming, but hear me out. I believe in you. I've seen how hard you're willing to work, and I think you deserve every opportunity to succeed. Let me help you finish your education. Let me support your dreams." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes, blurring her vision. No one had ever believed in her like this before. Not like this. She wanted to say yes, to accept his generosity and run with it, but doubt crept in. Could she really take such a gift? Wouldn't it feel wrong, like she hadn't earned it? I don't know what to say," she stammered, her voice trembling. "It's an incredible offer, but you're worried it's too much," Jonathan finished for her, nodding knowingly. "I get it. Trust me, I do. But here's the thing. Sometimes we need a little help to reach our goals. And when we're given that chance, the best way to honor it is by paying it forward. If you let me help you, promise me you'll use it. To make a difference, not just for yourself, but for others too." His words struck a chord deep within her. Paying it forward. That was something she understood. It was why she always tried to treat her customers with kindness, why she went above and beyond at the cafe even when she was exhausted. Helping others wasn't just a value. It was who she was. After a long pause, Emily nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll accept your help, but only if you promise I can pay it forward someday." Jonathan smiled, looking relieved. "Deal." As they left the restaurant together, the cool night air wrapping around them, Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future free from worry, a future where she could focus on chasing her dreams instead of just surviving. But more than that, she felt grateful, not just for Jonathan's generosity, but for the reminder that there are still good people in the world, people who see potential in others and aren't afraid to nurture it. This dinner had been more than just a meal. It had been the start of something new, a partnership built on trust, hope, and the belief that kindness has the power to change lives. And as Emily drove home that night, she knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. With Jonathan's support, Emily's life began to transform in ways she could never have imagined. The weight of financial stress that had been crushing her for years started to lift, bit by bit. She used the funds he provided to pay off her mother's medical bills, giving her peace of mind and allowing her to focus on recovery without constantly worrying about money. For the first time in a long while, their home felt lighter, less like a place shadowed by fear and more like a sanctuary filled with hope. Emily threw herself into her studies with renewed determination. Every night after her shift at the cafe, she sat at her kitchen table surrounded by textbooks and notes, determined to finish what she had started years ago. Nursing school was no walk in the park. It demanded long hours, endless memorization, and hands-on practice. But Emily didn't mind. With each passing day, she grew more confident in her abilities, knowing that this was her chance to build a better future not just for herself but for others too. Jonathan stayed in touch throughout her journey, checking in regularly to see how she was doing. Their conversations weren't just about progress reports or updates. They were genuine exchanges where both shared their thoughts, challenges, and victories. He became more than just a benefactor. He became a mentor, someone who believed in her when even she doubted herself. His encouragement pushed her through tough days when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her. One evening, as Emily studied late into the night, her phone buzzed with a message from him. "Remember why you're doing this. You're going to change lives, including your own." Those words stuck with her, echoing in her mind whenever self-doubt crept in. They reminded her that every sacrifice, every sleepless night was worth it because she was working toward something greater than herself. Years passed, and Emily graduated at the top of her class. Standing on stage in her cap and gown, clutching her diploma, she felt a surge of pride unlike anything she'd ever experienced. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was proof that hard work and kindness could rewrite even the hardest chapters of life. Her mother watched from the audience, tears streaming down her face, beaming with pride. And though Jonathan couldn't attend the ceremony due to prior commitments, he sent her a heartfelt message congratulating her on her achievement. But Emily didn't stop there. Inspired by Jonathan's generosity, she decided to give back to her community in a big way. Using part of the money he had given her, along with savings she'd carefully built up over time, she opened a small health clinic in her hometown. It wasn't fancy or state-of-the-art, but it served a purpose, providing affordable care to families who otherwise couldn't afford it. Many of her patients were people she knew, the same folks who had once sat at tables in the cafe, sipping coffee and chatting about their lives. Now she was helping them in a different way, offering medical advice, treatment, and compassion when they needed it most. The clinic quickly became a cornerstone of the community. People trusted Emily not just because of her skills, but because of the warmth and empathy she brought to every interaction. She remembered names, asked about kids and pets, and made sure everyone left feeling heard and cared for. Word spread fast, and soon the clinic was bustling with activity. Some days were exhausting, leaving Emily drained both physically and emotionally, but she wouldn't trade it for anything. Knowing she was making a difference gave her a sense of fulfillment she'd never found anywhere else. Through it all, Emily stayed true to her promise to pay it forward. She hired local teenagers to help out at the clinic, teaching them valuable skills while mentoring them about the importance of education and perseverance. She organized free health workshops for women in the area, empowering them to take charge of their well-being. And whenever someone expressed gratitude for her efforts, she humbly redirected the praise. "This isn't just me. It's thanks to the people who believed in me when I needed it most." Jonathan remained a close friend throughout these years, though their paths crossed only occasionally. When they did meet, whether over coffee or during one of his visits to town, their bond deepened further. Together, they launched a foundation aimed at supporting individuals facing financial hardships, particularly those pursuing careers in healthcare or education. The foundation offered scholarships, grants, and mentorship programs designed to break cycles of poverty and create opportunities for underserved communities. For Emily, this partnership felt like coming full circle. What had started as a simple act of kindness, a generous tip left by a stranger, had blossomed into a lifelong mission to uplift others. She often thought back to that rainy afternoon at the cafe, marveling at how fate had brought them together. If Jonathan hadn't walked through those doors, if he hadn't noticed her among the dozens of other faces, would she have found the courage to chase her dreams? Would she have discovered the power of paying it forward? As the years went by, Emily continued to inspire those around her. Young women looked up to her as a role model, seeing in her story the possibility of overcoming adversity and achieving greatness. Her clinic thrived, expanding its services and reaching even more people in need. Meanwhile, the foundation touched countless lives across the country, proving that acts of kindness can ripple outward in ways we may never fully comprehend. And yet, despite all her accomplishments, Emily never forgot where she came from, or the man who had changed everything. Whenever she faced a difficult decision or felt overwhelmed by the enormity of her responsibilities, she reminded herself of Jonathan's words, "Keep shining." Those two simple words carried her through every challenge, reminding her that even the smallest acts of light can illuminate the darkest corners of the world. Her journey wasn't perfect. It was messy, unpredictable, and sometimes downright hard. But it was hers, shaped by resilience, gratitude, and an unwavering belief in the goodness of humanity. And as she stood outside her clinic one sunny morning, watching children play and neighbors greet each other with smiles, she realized something. Profound. The greatest gift Jonathan had given her wasn't money or opportunity. It was the reminder that kindness has the power to transform lives, including her own. Years rolled by, and Emily's life became a testament to the power of kindness and determination. The clinic she had built from scratch was now a thriving hub of activity, serving not just her hometown but surrounding areas as well. People came, from miles away, drawn by word-of-mouth stories of the compassionate nurse who treated everyone like family. Her reputation grew beyond the walls of the clinic. She was invited to speak at local schools, community centers, and even regional conferences about healthcare access and the importance of giving back. But what truly set Emily apart wasn't just her professional success. It was the way she carried herself every single day. She remained humble despite all her accomplishments, never forgetting the struggles that had shaped her journey. Whether she was comforting a scared child during a checkup or sitting down with an elderly patient to hear their story, she made sure no one felt invisible. That same warmth and dedication she'd shown in the cafe years ago continued to shine brightly in everything she did. Jonathan stayed deeply involved in her life, too, though their roles had shifted over time. He wasn't just the mysterious stranger who had changed her world anymore. He was a trusted friend and partner in making a difference. Together, they expanded the foundation they'd started, pouring resources into programs aimed at helping underprivileged youth pursue careers in fields like medicine, teaching, and technology. They believed that investing in people wasn't just about solving immediate problems. It was about creating lasting change that would benefit generations to come. One summer evening, Emily found herself standing on stage at a gala hosted by the Foundation. The room buzzed with energy as donors, volunteers, and beneficiaries gathered to celebrate the organization's achievements. As she looked out at the crowd, she couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by how far they'd come. Just a few years ago, she'd been juggling shifts at a cafe, barely keeping her head above water. Now here she was, addressing hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the work she and Jonathan had done together. "I want to start by saying thank you," Emily began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Thank you to everyone who has supported this mission, from our donors to our volunteers to the incredible individuals we've been lucky enough to serve. But most importantly, I want to say thank you to someone very special." She paused, glancing toward Jonathan, who sat near the front of the room. He gave her a small nod, encouraging her to continue. "There was a moment in my life when I thought I'd run out of hope," she admitted, her words heartfelt and raw. "I was working long hours, struggling to make ends meet, and wondering if I'd ever be able to chase the dreams I'd put on hold. Then one rainy afternoon, a stranger walked into my cafe. He didn't know me and I didn't know him, but he saw something in me that day that I couldn't see in myself. His generosity didn't just change my life, it reminded me of the kind of person I wanted to be." The audience listened intently, many nodding along as if they understood exactly what she meant. For some, her story mirrored their own experiences of being lifted up by acts of kindness. For others, it served as a reminder of the impact one person can have even in the smallest moments. "That's why I'm here tonight, to honor that spirit of generosity and pass it on," Emily continued, "because kindness isn't just about giving money or resources. It's about seeing someone for who they are, believing in them when they need it most, and reminding them that they matter. That's what Jonathan did for me. And that's what I hope we're doing for others through this foundation." When she finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. Tears glistened in the eyes of several attendees, moved not just by her words but by the authenticity behind them. Afterward, dozens of people approached her to share their own stories of struggle and triumph, inspired by her vulnerability and resilience. It was clear that her journey had resonated with so many because it represented something universal. The idea that no matter how hard life gets, there's always a chance for redemption, and sometimes that chance comes in the form of unexpected kindness. As the years went on, Emily and Jonathan continued to collaborate, expanding their efforts to reach even more communities. Their partnership evolved into a friendship rooted in mutual respect and shared values. Though their backgrounds were worlds apart, they shared a deep belief in the potential of humanity and the importance of lifting others up. Jonathan often joked that Emily had taught him as much as he had taught her, pointing out how her relentless optimism and empathy had inspired him to stay grounded despite his wealth and influence. For Emily, the ripple effects of that rainy afternoon at the cafe extended far beyond anything she could have imagined. Her clinic became a model for similar initiatives across the country, proving that affordable, compassionate care could thrive even in underserved areas. Young women who had once doubted their ability to succeed now looked to her as proof that barriers could be broken with hard work and support. And countless families benefited from the Foundation's programs, gaining access to opportunities they might never have dreamed possible. Through it all, Emily held on to one simple truth: kindness matters. It wasn't just a slogan or a platitude, it was the guiding principle of her life. Every decision she made, every action she took, stemmed from the belief that even the smallest gesture of goodwill could spark extraordinary change. Whether it was holding a patient's hand during a difficult diagnosis or mentoring a teenager unsure of their future, she poured her heart into everything she did, knowing that each act of compassion carried the potential to transform a life. Looking back, Emily often reflected on how different her life might have been without that fateful encounter at the cafe. Would she still be stuck in the same cycle of debt and exhaustion? Would she have given up on her dreams altogether? There was no way to know for sure. What she did know, however, was that the stranger who had walked into her cafe all those years ago hadn't just handed her a tip, he had handed her a lifeline, a chance to rewrite her story and in doing so inspire others to do the same. And so as she stood outside her clinic one crisp autumn morning, watching the sun rise over the town she loved, Emily smiled. Life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned. Not perfectly, not without challenges, but it had become something beautiful, something meaningful, something worth fighting for. In the end, the greatest lesson she learned wasn't about money or success. It was about connection, about seeing the good in others and nurturing it, even when it seemed buried beneath layers of hardship. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person choosing to shine a light in the darkness to remind us that brighter days are ahead.